Hello and welcome to Heavy Metal Rex. My name is Waste, and today I am actually in Austin on location in front of this unassuming building. And you wouldn't guess it, but that's actually Cobb Tuning. I cannot even describe how excited I am to be here today, because I would have never imagined in a million years that A, that I would start a YouTube channel, and then B, go to the place where most of our dreams are actually built. As you all know, Cobb Tuning helps support a lot of different platforms, one of them being the Subaru and all of our WRXs and STIs. And so I get a lot of questions through our tuner talks and all of my trips when I talk to people about different things related to what's happening with the VB WRX. Now, some of those questions are not questions that I can directly answer. And so this year, as you guys know, I've decided to travel around the United States and see if I can find more of those answers directly from the people who actually support some of this stuff. And of course, Cobb Tuning was #1 on that list. I made this drive because I really wanted to, just for myself, but the fact that I'm able to go inside and ask pretty much any question that I want and be able to get that answer for you guys is actually pretty amazing. So Marshall is actually going to be my guide today, and from everything that I've spoken to him so far, I really don't think anything is off the table. So I did ask you guys for a couple of questions before I got here. I do have some questions for myself, and more excitingly, while I was driving here, there were some things that were actually released that I wasn't able to cover, like the flat foot shifting and launch control for the VB WRX. So I'm gonna go inside, or I'm actually just gonna do just some B-roll and just kind of show you guys what the inside of Cobb looks like if you've never been here, and then we're gonna sit down with Marshall and get right to it. All right, guys, I am here in Cobb's shop with Marshall here. First of all, thank you so much for letting me come down here. I was really excited to take this drive. It has been, one would say, a Subaru person's dream to be able to come down to Cobb. But tell me more. Like, tell me, what is your role here at Cobb?
So I have two roles here. My primary role is I oversee all of our digital content, social media marketing efforts, and traveling for events. And secondary to that is I'm our Subaru product owner. So anything in our Subaru product line, I help to prioritize, put together, and get to you guys, the customers, for your cars.
Interesting. So you're a product owner. That means you need a Scrum Master.
We have plenty of those.
You need to get rid of them so I can start working here.
Yeah.
All right. So as I was driving here, I knew that there was some news coming because you kind of hinted on some stuff. But like in the middle of my drive, I think I was like 5 hours in, I was getting like DM after DM about Cobb is dropping this, Cobb just dropped that. Did you see this video? So tell us, some of the really cool things that just came out yesterday.
Yeah, so you're obviously super big in the VB space, and this has been a big week for our Subaru product line, and specifically VB guys. We've made 2024 WRX tuning possible.
Yep.
So every time there's a new model year vehicle, we have to reverse engineer the ECU, make sure things either carry over or adjust things to be supported. So we're excited to get people who are buying new WRXs supported. And
the TRs, specifically the TRs.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to drive our TR over the past few months for development, and it's been awesome. Love that car. So yeah, 2024 WRX support, both manual and CVT. And then what a lot of people have been waiting for has been our first iteration of Cobb custom features. So the access port, we reverse engineer the ECU, and we can, right off the cuff, we develop off-the-shelf maps. And that's using tables that are there from the factory, Subaru implemented tables. We take control of those, we manipulate them and make our maps. Then we add them into our software so that pro tuners can create maps for custom tunes and whatnot. Beyond that, now we have what we call custom features. And the first iteration of that adds launch control and flat foot shifting. RIP transmissions.
Yeah, I'm telling you, everybody was like, oh, they're not so bad, but like, now we're going to see exactly how bad they are.
Well, luckily, I think the transmission hardware is pretty well known. It's the same that was in the previous generation WRXs. And luckily, there are already STI swap options out there.
That's the nice thing is that it's pretty bolt-on, which is now you're gonna need it.
Yeah, so launch control, flat foot shifting are now available. You can adjust the RPM on the access port on the fly. It's super slick. Do it in a safe space. I usually do it at a red light.
Yeah,
it's pretty quick, but it's fun.
So, and now that's just from the stop. Are we able to? Is there like any sort of like rolling anti-lag related to this? Because I know some. Okay.
So we did test some of that. What we call rolling boost.
Yeah, that's right.
In previous vehicles, we allow you to hold one of the cruise control
buttons. Like the cruise control buttons, yeah.
And that'll hold the car at a certain speed and RPM, and then you mash the throttle and it'll build boost or load.
Okay.
We tested some of that on the VB. We weren't quite happy with its, what's the term? Resonance, I guess.
Okay.
It was a little too jerky.
Okay.
We need to spend time to refine that and hope to bring that to
so at least the point is that's something that's on the table. That is something that's
possible. Yeah, it's going to just take some additional work to fine tune it and make it something that you would actually enjoy using.
Okay. I feel like for people who are worried about their transmission, that is the better feature for Mexico, having rolling boost than launch control. Launch control is great. I think on the dirt, that's a great thing about being on the dirt, is that I don't have to worry that much about my transmission on the dirt, whereas on the tarmac it is way harder. But if you have an STI transmission, obviously having launch control is going to be really nice. Which I have one. I'm just saving up. It's sitting there. My Subaru shop has it, and a really nice one too. I just need to save the funds to do it.
Very cool.
Now, and I remember because I remember when I had my VA, I remember I had launch control, but I didn't even know that it had the rolling boost option in there.
Yeah.
I think I'd seen somebody else do it in a different model. I think it was like an Audi or a Volkswagen. I was like, wait a minute. Do I have that? Like, I don't know if I have that. So it's funny that came out, because the number one question that people told me is like, when I told them I was coming up here, down here, they said, ask them about launch control. And I was like, damn, you guys just like validated like half my questions. So launch control, flat foot shifting, that's amazing. But that's only in America.
We've been talking about it for a long time. Yeah. So there's been a lot of pent up demand from the market. Unfortunately, we kind of tied those features to some other ECU updates that had to go through emissions testing, which is a thing we do now. And the process to get through all of that took a bit longer than we expected, but now it's finally available. That
is real, and I'm glad. But see, that not only did you include that, but there was an ECU brick fix that you guys put in.
So we've seen a handful of. This is specific to 2022 WRXs.
Okay.
They have a different bootloader than the 2023 and 2024, and we were seeing cases where a flash would fail at about 1%.
Okay.
And if it fails in just the right spot, it cannot be recovered by the access port in the field. You'd have to ship it to us. We can backdoor it. That means we've got to drill a hole in your ECU, pins to the ECU board to recover
Literally backdoor it.
Yeah, so we can fix it, but we've added a fix to that for those cars now, where we've changed up some of the flashing protocol, and we're not flashing a portion that is as vital as early in the process.
Yeah.
And so that way, if it does fail, the access port should be able to recover it in the field without you having to send the ECU.
Now, is that what happened to Cody at Street Inspired? Or was that a different? That's exactly what happened to him?
What happened.
And that's because I remember, we all know what happened when that whole debacle happened.
And just to give you guys some perspective on that, we've sold, I think, a little over 4,000 access ports for VB WRX.
Wow.
And we've in-house recovered 40 ECUs.
That's not bad.
So it's a very small percentage of people that encountered that problem. At the end of the day, it's still something that we don't want to be your experience as a customer.
Now,
so we made some improvements to try and to make that better.
4,000 VBs. Now, does that count just the access ports you guys have sold directly, or are you also counting?
That's in the whole distribution stream.
Okay.
So we have big distributors that provide access ports to shops around the country, and we have dealer level, and then also on our website, direct to consumer.
Okay, so if we've sold over 40,000 VBs worldwide, and you sold only 4,000, that's still a really small percentage of people that are tuned compared to people that just have stock WRXs.
And that's pretty typical market penetration for our Subaru product. There are a lot of Subarus on the road. Subaru has obviously grown substantially over the past 15 years or so. At the end of the day, the WRX, the STI, the BRZ are very small beans for them.
Yeah.
So we're looking to get into some more vehicles. We already support the Ascent. We're looking at the Outback.
I saw that. I was trying to get my wife to buy an Ascent because I saw that you could tune it.
Yeah. Track tested. We took ours to Coda.
Dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
There was at Ecotech, is a Subaru shop where I go to in St. Louis. Somebody had brought in an Ascent. I don't remember what year it was, but they wanted to 6-speed swap it.
Oh wow, that'd be fun.
How amazing would it be? It was something that you could tune. I think it was a 2019.
Sure.
A tuned VB or an Ascent with an FA24 and a 6-speed swap would have been such a crazy car. Just lower it a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't mind driving one of those.
Yeah, they're fun. We've had a handful of Ascents here just from 19 to 22. And it's a great family car. My wife and kid love it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially when you tune it, put a 6-speed. Yeah. That is the family car. That's a family and track car. All right, so launch control, flat foot shifting in the US. Is it anywhere else?
It's also available for manual cars in Australia.
Ah, that was the next question. I got it. I have quite a few people that watch in Australia. They ask me, they're like, do we have that? I'm like, I don't know, man. I got to find out.
It's available for you now. And ironically, in Australia, the market split for manual to CVT cars is almost inverse of what it is here. There are a lot of CVT cars in Australia. And so the #1 request out of Australia has been CVT tuning. And we're working on that now.
Okay.
And should have it available in June.
That's literally my next question.
Yeah.
Wagon, more specifically, the Wagon SPT tune in Australia.
Well, and maybe even Mexico.
Dude, okay, I don't even, this is so frustrating. I'm so glad that you brought that up because like when I saw that first, all those articles were super clickbaity because they're like, oh yeah, North America is getting a manual 6-speed. I'm like, there's no way.
Right.
There's no freaking way. And then when I saw it was in Mexico, immediately I messaged, I'm friends with the partner that runs the dealership. I was like, can we make this happen?
Right.
Can we bring it here somehow? And he's like,
I think it's likely due to safety regulations.
Yeah.
You probably can't legally. I fully intend to try and do everything we can to bring one to us for development.
Dude,
obviously I don't think it could stay here for a long term, but if we could get one here to develop and just expand our coverage through other markets in the world.
If you could get that here, that would be so. I will come back.
We could have a wagon party.
if you get that, I will drive. I'm not a big fan of driving. I feel like I drive to Houston way more. My family lives down in Houston. Like every time I say I won't drive, I end up driving. And this is like my 7th trip down here in like the last year, like 2 years. And if you get that wagon here somehow, I will come back for that because that would be amazing.
We'll keep everybody in the loop.
That is so cool. Okay, so another big thing that you guys just came out with was flex fuel for the because it was already for the STI, but you just now have support for the VA WRX.
Correct.
So what about the VB?
So before I get to that, we have 2 current flex fuel implementations for Subaru.
Let's talk about that.
The first one is what we call our next gen flex fuel kit. And that is a redesign of the old flex fuel kits that we implemented for the EJ powered STIs and are working on WRX support for 2008 to 2021. The second option is a CAN gateway kit. And what we've done is we've developed a CAN gateway, which actually existed prior to this for our Nissan GTR platform. We reworked it a little bit to work on Subarus. Unfortunately, Subaru ECUs operate at a little bit of a slower speed than the GTR does, so we had to slow down communications and whatnot. But what the CAN system allows us to do is inject data to the ECU or to the CAN network for the ECU to be interpret without having to hijack any sensors in the engine bay.
Okay.
So previous kits, you had to plug into a TGV connector.
Right.
And even with the next gen kit, you're still connecting to a TGV sensor, but we've worked it in a way that both the TGV sensor data and ethanol and fuel pressure can all be communicated on the same channel.
Okay.
And that's great. We keep all of the sensor data present. We don't cause any check engine lights, but there could be more data. And so that's where the gateway comes in. We're doing a full digital sensor output into the gateway, and that's interpreted by the network. And you get way more data into the ECU for more fine tuning, more exact tuning. And the goal is to bring that solution from the VA WRXs over to VB. Okay. Obviously, there are some challenges to that, the VB being a completely different ECU, and the mechanical configuration being completely different as well. Yeah. Just the way that the fuel lines even come into the engine bay is different. So the kit will look different bracketry, different sensor location, but all the core components we're hoping to bring to the VB. So it'll be the gateway and an ethanol content sensor, and then a low pressure fuel sensor.
Okay. So with that said, we know that the VB obviously can currently run ethanol, to some degree, but there are some limitations. So what are some of those limitations that you guys see, and what is the big benefit of having that flex fuel kit to combat some of those limitations?
Sure. So right now there are some limitations to just the factory tables and injection windows and things like that that prevent you from truly tuning for higher ethanol content. With ethanol, you do have to inject more fuel mass to get the same output. Right. And so you need more time to inject. And what we're hoping to do is over the next couple of months, allow for a larger injection window on the cars, and also improve some things that they may be causing some detonation towards the top end of the RPM band, which is never ideal. And that's just fixing factory logic stuff or implementing custom tables on our end to address those limitations. So once we've done that, we'll be able to move forward with true flex fuel tuning. So any range of ethanol content from E10, which is typical at the pump fuel, up to E85 or beyond if you choose to source E100 or something like that. Some
race gas or something.
But first we have to kind of implement some changes that make tuning for those concentrations possible. Yeah. And that's obviously something that people running standalones aren't having to deal with right now, because it's fully controlled by the aftermarket ECU. That we're working with the factory ECU, so we've got to adjust some things to make that work. Okay. Yeah. It's
exciting that we are still able to run it. We are able to run a good amount of ethanol and make some pretty damn good power. So I know this is something that people are still asking for pretty much on a daily basis.
Direct injected Subarus respond incredibly well to ethanol tuning, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that higher output is possible. A simple bolt-on car with ethanol is such a great deal of fun.
It really is. Yeah.
So I'm excited to continue on that project and offer that. Hopefully by the end of the year, if everything goes well. Obviously, we go through emissions testing and everything now, so we do have some portions of the development cycle that are kind of unpredictable, but we'll do everything we can to expedite.
All right, that's like the three main questions always was launch control, flat foot shifting, and flex fuel. Yeah. That's like the number. And when I asked this question, like 4 people, that's the only question they had.
Yeah. And if you look at my Subaru product owner priority board, it's launch control, flat foot shift, and flex fuel's on there at the top too. So and
then everything else. Yeah. Okay. So all right. So I'm going to move around here a little bit. You mentioned like having to do a lot of stuff with emissions and stuff. Like, how has it been post green speed?
Sure. So obviously it was a tough call. We did what we had to do to feel comfortable moving forward in the current climate of the aftermarket industry. It's very apparent that the government was not a fan of the way certain things were being done historically. We're in a unique position to where we can make a change to how we offer our product line to comply and still offer a product that is a lot of fun for the end user. It's been challenging. There was obviously a huge hit having to pull old flex fuel kits, having to pull downpipe compatibility and stage 2 maps and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, we never offered those on the VB, so it wasn't ever a huge hit to pull back a lot of product from the VB crowd. But it meant that we couldn't bring those products to market.
Right.
And it took us longer to develop certain things, like an intake solution, with Subaru moving to a hydrocarbon trap affixed to the airbox that cannot be removed. That's a federally mandated emissions component.
Right.
And so we are not comfortable offering a parts solution that removes the emissions components. So we worked with some companies to develop a really cool filter solution, unlike any other on the market. And we developed an intake tube, and combined, those do create a pretty significant flow increase for the car. And combine that with an off-the-shelf map, and it's a nice bump in power. Obviously, you can do more with
and we've seen people do like really good numbers with that system.
Yeah, but honestly, I can't wait for flex fuel, because even a completely stock car on ethanol is going to make more than like a fully bolted car in E10. So
that's really exciting, because and that's what I've been like. Sometimes people ask me, they're like, what parts should I get to make XYZ? And I'm like, just don't even worry about parts. Just ask your tuner for like an E40 blend.
Yeah,
that alone will put you at least like at least at 300, maybe even a little bit north of that, that's a good deal of power just for changing your gas.
Yeah,
that's no other part.
Yeah,
obviously access port.
Yeah,
you need the tune.
Yeah,
but you don't have to worry about monkeying up and doing all this stuff, which is that's a nice benefit of ethanol. And I didn't have ethanol on my VA, so I never really experienced it. I just had a somewhat aggressive 93 map, making like 295.
Nice.
That was like a lot of power.
Yeah. For that little tube.
All right, so with the green speed and everything, that was around the same time that I think the VB was announced, or somewhere around that time. Yeah. And so did that have any did that hamper any production for the VB and any new parts?
Not directly. We did have to, when we had to pull the old flex fuel components off the market, we knew that we wanted to reintroduce them in a compliant way. And so as soon as they were off, we were hard at work developing a new solution. And that's taken a very long time. Obviously, 2 years have gone by since we've done that. And what that does is prevents us from going as hard initially with the VB as we would have liked to. So the priority was get stage 1 tuning out, get Access Tuner Pro out, and then slowly chip away at our stage power packages and additional maps. But
while also trying to do what was left over.
Yeah, so while also re-implementing flex fuel for both the STI and the VB WRX. So now that both of those are done, that was a lot of work to redo, basically.
Right.
We'd done all that work, and then we had to remove it. Like, all right, we got to do it all over again in a slightly different way. So I'm really excited that we're through a lot of that, and we can kind of focus now more on moving forward. More vehicle support, more features for the VB WRX, things like that.
Which is what we just got. We got those features, right?
And we have more in the pipeline.
You feel like you guys are caught up now? Like you are just like caught up with everything from the past, from green speed?
Yeah, I feel like on the Subaru platform for sure.
Okay.
I feel like we're in a pretty good place.
We don't care about the other platforms. Yeah. I don't care about any of the rest of you guys. No, I had a GTI.
We're pretty diverse here now. We've got, I don't know if you see, we got the Explorer ST, we've got the Acura Honda stuff going on. So
I'm glad that like originally I didn't know that Cobb actually touched all these scripts. Like everything that everybody told me was like Subaru Cobb, Subaru Cobb, Cobb. So when I went on the website finally, I was like, look at all these other cars, because I had a GTI a long time ago, and I had an APR tube.
Nice.
Which is like, you want to talk about cars that love tuning. Oh my God. Volkswagens are just amazing.
I had a Mark 7 GTI as an employee here for a while when we were just getting into Volkswagen tuning. It was a lot of fun.
It is. Mine was manual. It was a Mark 6.
I couldn't stay away from the all-wheel drive, and I didn't want to buy a Golf R. So back to Subaru.
Yep. And that's pretty much like because I had a buddy, and it's like completely unrelated conversation, but like I had a buddy who bought a Golf R. he bought a Mark 7 Golf R and had a Mark 6 GTI, and I was like, man, that's really amazing. But he paid, I think, like 39 or 42. So I'm like, it was really expensive.
Yeah,
and I was like, why would I pay that much?
Mark 8s are even more expensive. It's wild.
And I was like, well, I always knew I wanted a Subaru, so I was like, oh, this is great. It's a nice, it's got everything, and you know, the all-wheel drive. So
but Subaru is still an overwhelming majority of our product offering, our what we do here at Cobb.
And I don't think you guys are the only one, though, because I was having this conversation with a couple of other content creators, and they were like trying to decide what car to buy next to be a content car. And it's crazy to think we have GR Corollas, we have the new GTIs, new Golf Rs, we have the Integra, we have the BRZ, Elantra Ns. Like, there's a lot of really good cars on the market, but like for whatever reason, they still, as much as people hate VBs, they still don't come it's close to the sales of a WRX.
Oh, for sure.
And then just like the sheer aftermarket support from different companies as a WRX.
Yeah. I think in that niche, like you're saying, the WRX is still the highest volume. All of those other cars are still very small volume for their respective manufacturers. I think the only ones that may start getting close are the Hyundai N cars.
Oh, you think so?
Just all combined compared to the WRX.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there are so many Subarus on the road. Obviously, Austin's a very tech-oriented town, and I feel like a lot of people in the tech industry really like the Subaru platform for whatever reason, so they're everywhere here.
Interesting. I lived in Houston. I actually only came up to Austin one time, and it was for like a concert for a weekend. So I don't know. I actually don't know anything about Austin.
Yeah. It's Subarus and Teslas.
Okay, interesting. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, If it's a tech place, I get the Tesla part. Yeah. But that's always been a really interesting fact about these cars. Like, even if it's just not this one, when you look any generation, our community is quite passionate. Is the word that I can use, both the negative and the positive. They're both very passionate. So okay, well, that's cool. I'm glad that things are catching up. I'm, again, like I said, when I was driving in, I heard that news. I was like, yes, because I've done a lot of acceleration testing of my own. So I could have used launch control a few times.
Well, in an all-wheel drive car, rallycross and autocross, gaining time off the line is a huge advantage. So being able to launch off the line now, predictably. Yes, and that's
the same every time.
Yeah.
I have another rallycross in July that I'll be doing, and that's the one thing I noticed. I'm still just using like the clutch handbrake method, and it's like, it's okay, but I can never recreate it the same every time. But maybe you can, and you're a better driver. All right, so next up, this is also something that happened when the AP first came out for the VBs. We had auto on, auto off. Right. So what happened with all that?
Okay, so a little bit of backstory, because I haven't done a very good job of explaining it online to what happened. So we had to make a change to an internal component of the access port.
Okay.
One of the components on there was just no longer available for us to build with. And this new component impacted EOD in a negative way and made it much less reliable. Access ports would turn on while the car was off, could drain your battery.
That's what happened,
They would unexpectedly turn off while you're driving, maybe even while you're logging. So what we did is we actually pulled the feature because it wasn't reliable. We didn't want people having a bad experience with that feature. Unfortunately, that did mean that you had to use the power button to turn it off and on for a while. We reintroduced auto on off for access ports that were built before about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
But obviously, the overwhelming majority of VB WRX owners have new access ports with this new hardware. And so they were chomping at the bit to have that engine on-off detection capability back. So we've re-implemented it. It's a little bit smarter than it used to be. It has a learning curve that it'll actually detect certain thresholds to turn off and on with your car. So let it learn while it's doing its thing, or while you're driving and turning the car off and on. It will turn off, it will turn back on. Just give it time to kind of reset itself.
Okay.
And there are opportunities within the menus to manually make adjustments as well, but the auto stuff seems to work really well in VB.
Okay, that's because I mean, what ended up happening was there was people that were buying obviously used access ports, and then there's people that were buying new ones, and then there was a mismatch because everybody was like, my battery drained, I don't know what happened, and people were like, well, just turn that feature on. And I think even in the new ones, the feature would show in the menu, but it wouldn't work in the beginning, and that was the confusion, because everybody's like, well, I have it on,
But
why isn't it doing it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's no way to tell visually looking at the access port what version of the board you have, unless you completely
open it
apart.
And we're not probably going to recommend you guys to do that.
Yeah. But now it's reintroduced, so make sure you are on the most up-to-date firmware for your access port. Always good practice. I know there's a lot of kind of hesitation to do so. People don't want to bring in bugs. They don't want to bring in. They think we're going to take their tunes away.
Oh my god, like dude!
We're never going to do that.
When that green speed came out, the amount of people that said that, I was
we
like,
don't technically
how that
have
works.
the capability to do that technologically. We can't
rip it out of your ECU.
So we're not going to do that.
Oh my god!
It's always good practice to keep your firmware up to date though, because we're always fixing stuff. Reintroducing features, things like that. A new big one is what we call data log compression. And so, especially on the VBs, these things, the ECUs are great. They can log at a pretty high rate with hundreds of monitors. And so the data log files get pretty big pretty quick. The access port, the user partition can handle about 100 megs worth of data. And that can fill up in 10 data logs if you're logging because 20
even a basic
or a track session.
log was like about like 8-9 megs now.
Yeah, so you can fill up the user partition pretty quickly, and so we've implemented some compression on the fly on the access port, and so we've cut data logs substantially. I don't know what the actual. I haven't seen one on the TR over about a meg yet.
Okay, wow, that's
that's on like a 20,
a good amount.
30-minute commute. So yeah, we're constantly implementing things like that to make the access port more user-friendly, easier for a pro tuner to use, you know, and receive emails and things like that with data logs. So
don't be scared.
Yeah,
just update your access port. Because I remember when green speed came out, that's all. Every other day, somebody was like, "Well, I'm not going to update it. They're just going to like shut everything off." I'm like, "That's not how it works." Like. And I wasn't even an expert, and I can tell from like an engineering standpoint that's not how it's gonna work. Like, can you imagine how bad it would be? Like how ridiculous it would be if like you did actually do that?
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
You know, because then the government would just force you to be like, oh yeah, just turn all those off.
Right.
And now everybody's car is dead. Like, that's just not gonna happen. All right, so. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about this because this is really interesting. It's kind of related to the green speed where you guys used to offer J pipes, but now most of the newer J pipes that we've seen, even my custom one, will eventually throw some sort of was it the 420 code? Yeah. Now, do you guys have plans to eventually reintroduce? Because you said you're going to reintroduce some things later on. Is that
so? Right now, no. There is part of the Clean Air Act, and it's kind of the driving force behind our green speed push, is that factory emissions equipment is supposed to remain on the vehicle for the life of its emissions warranty. On a new car, it's 8 years and I think 100,000 miles. So we don't currently have plans to reintroduce a J-pipe or introduce a J-pipe for the VB WRX. We are going to constantly be working with CARB to develop a process that could potentially bring a compliant J-pipe or downpipe to market in the future. There are some hurdles to that, especially in the aftermarket space. There are obviously means to do so in OE replacement, in the OE replacement vein, but not necessarily in a performance vein.
Okay.
So we're going to continue working with some catalyst manufacturers who have worked on compliance on their catalysts in the past and see if we can integrate those and develop a process with CARB to have a certified J-pipe or downpipe. And I think it could be a long-term thing, but I think that it would be beneficial long run if we could do that.
Yeah. I mean, most tuners have already, like we've already confirmed the J-pipe is not like, the OEM J-pipe is not like super restrictive. Like it's actually not a bad OEM J-pipe for what it could be. Yeah, you could get some power, but I've always felt like the price for performance for a J-pipe is like kind of low. So,
and especially just because of how expensive J-pipes are.
Yeah.
You're having to use a higher quality catalyst in hopes of preventing a DTC. And in most cases, they won't ever fully prevent that DTC. the way that the ECUs are calculating catalyst efficiency is constantly evolving. And where some catalysts were sufficient for passing those tests on older cars, they're not sufficient for passing those tests on newer cars.
Yeah.
We ran into that on EJ powered STIs. They changed the way that that calculation was done in 2019. And so even our Jesse catted downpipes would occasionally trigger a DTC on the newer STIs. But yeah, I actually don't know much about how the VB ECU is calculating the catalyst efficiency, but I imagine it's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Seeing as how many people are running DTC
like, and even mine, like in the beginning, because I have a 400 cell, a slightly larger 400 cell Jesse Cat than what ETS, some of the other ones were putting, because Ecotech, we built one and he just ordered one outright. And then we put it into a catalyst and cut it up. And for the longest time, I didn't even have an issue. It wasn't until like very weird situations, like extreme cold and extreme hot, and on E85. Like it had to be those situations. And then I'd say every 400 or 500 miles, I'd throw.
And all of those things, the temperatures obviously impact how those calculations are run on the ECU. How catalyst warm up is occurring during, like a stratified warm up on a cold start, things like that. And all of those factor into the final calculation of how efficient is this cat and should I throw a DTC or not for the ECU. So it's not surprising that those outside of the norm conditions are more likely to cause a DTC.
Oh man, that's
sorry.
I mean, it's not that big a deal. I mean, when I had my car on just an intake, I mean, intake in '93, I was making like 320, and with like ethanol, I was making like almost 370. Like it's even if you can't get one, you're not really that far off of making like a lot of. I mean, 370. It was like 364. That's a lot of power with just an intake and some ethanol. I think it was like an E30 blend. It wasn't even like a full E40 or E50.
And
so there's power to be had.
And there are going to be some people that hate me for saying this, but that is plenty of power for this chassis.
Yeah, I'd say most people like learn to use that first.
Yeah.
And then you can worry about if you need like 400, 500. Like, I mean, people ask me all the time if I'm going to do like a ETS turbo kit. And it's like, I drive my car more than anybody else that I know, especially content creator wise. I guarantee it. I'm willing to put money on it.
Yeah.
And I have like half the horsepower, but like I do more with half horsepower than they do with like
rallycross road trips. It's a do it everything vehicle.
And that's what I love about it. It can do anything. And in my mind, I think that like the slightly lower power for me helps the longevity of my car, because now I can do more longer with a little bit. And it's not like, I don't want to say it's a little bit of power. Like I'm on my E85 tune, I make like 385. I think like 384. That's a lot of power. I like the way it feels.
Yeah, and if you can manage torque, torque is what breaks things. So if you manage the torque, you can still make that top end power, and it's a ton of fun.
Okay, all right. So there's a couple of other questions, but I wanted to actually do that in the dyno room, because I have some questions about the VB that you have in there. Because there's some fun features on there that also got released that I haven't really talked about. So do you mind taking us in there and take a look?
Let's go take a look.
All right. All right, Marshall. So this is your guys' VB, your development VB.
Yeah.
And obviously, I saw that the front mount that you guys have is incredibly. It kind of looks like a spaceship. So tell me about some of the design philosophies on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we wanted to do is introduce a kit that was a little bit different than what's available in the market right now. A lot of the kits have a pipe that comes up over the driver's side and goes up over a lot of components over there. Require you to mash some AC lines out of the way. Not ideal.
Yeah.
So we wanted to see what we could do about keeping all of the piping on the passenger side of the car. That does two things for us. One, it keeps the install super clean. And two, it actually keeps piping much shorter than anything else on the market.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
It is quicker transient response between gears, coming in and out of boosts. You don't see any lag. Honestly, the difference between it and our top mount intercooler is negligible. Because if you think about it, the path is the exact same as the top mount. So what we did is we went with a top bottom flow on the core itself. We worked with Garrett to develop a core and created our intakes for the top and bottom of those. And luckily, the performance of the core, top to bottom, we have some data we'll be presenting when we release that product, but it's very good. Absolutely sufficient for a stock turbo, upgraded stock frame turbos, even maybe some of the smaller big turbo kits that are out there. Obviously, if you're going real big power, you may need a larger core to handle all that heat, but it's plenty thick. And it fits behind the bumper cover just fine. We've actually added some cool ducting that helps channel the air through the openings in the bumper cover into the stack of the intercooler, radiator, and air conditioner compressor, or condenser, excuse me. So more than just an intercooler. There's some cool features with the kit as well.
So when you said, so it's not out yet. Do we know kind of like when we're looking at?
We're hoping this summer. We are, we talked about emissions stuff.
Yeah.
And how every component that we offer has to go through some sort of compliance gating application. So we have an application in with Cobb right now. We're waiting to hear back if we're going to actually do on-car testing or not. Okay. Fingers crossed we don't, because A, that's very expensive, and B, it adds a long timeline to bring things to market. So hopefully this summer, if everything goes to plan.
All right, Marshall, so you were talking about the way the pipe goes. Here, obviously you can see that mine actually comes up on this side, and yes, you got to bend this down. The battery can't be removed. I actually ended up having to take off the tube where my windshield wiper goes, or the windshield fluid. So tell us, tell me more about this. This is a really cool design.
Yeah, so it basically follows the same path that the factory and our charge pipe for the top mount setups follows. It tucks down behind our power scoop here. You will have to have a power scoop or something to replace this front part of the air box to go around the tubing there. So everything funnels down into kind of this same quadrant. So we've got the intake pipe, the hot pipe, and the cold pipe all kind of converging together down here. So we have, we have some cool pictures of it off the car, and we'll share some of those with you, that show some cool bracketry and keeping everything together down there, but it's pretty tricky.
So you mentioned the power scoop. Does do any of the power stage packages come with that?
Not yet, but they will. We'll be integrating this into our upgrade path and stage power packages. Anything that it would have to go with anything coming with the front mount intercooler setup. But we can also add it. It's compatible with anything. It does not require any tuning. And what it does, it's a larger volume in front of the filter. And so you have that larger volume available to you when you start building boost and pulling into the intake.
I think this is good. So my last question is, people complain about the OTS tunes. They have in the past, and they complain about them now. So from your mouth, tell us, why the stigma of OTS tunes?
Yeah, so I'm in the Facebook groups. I'm the one running the Cobb account in Facebook groups. I see it all. I respond to you all. I know about the stigma. An overwhelming majority of that comes from the past. People mix matching parts with tunes that aren't meant for those parts. If you think about an off-the-shelf map, it's just a calibration that was created with the intent to be used on more than one car. And that's exactly what Subaru does with their calibration as the cars come from the factory. And what we do is we just take that and we improve upon it. And at the end of the day, our off-the-shelf maps are oftentimes the basis for a custom tune from one of your pro tuners. So a lot of the hate, I guess, towards the off-the-shelf maps is they knock a lot, they're too safe, my fuel trims are high, and honestly, a lot of that comes just from, like I'm saying, mismatched parts, fuel quality that's not up to snuff, and things like that, where you can absolutely run them as they're intended to be run, and you're not going to have a problem with it. We have cars running our stage 2 maps from 2005 on JD WRXs to this day with multiple hundreds of thousands of miles on it. So if you maintain your car, use the right combination of parts, there's nothing wrong with an off-the-shelf map. Could it be more aggressive? Sure. We are working on some improved off-the-shelf maps for VB WRX, stage 1 and stage 2.
That's interesting.
A little bit more boost, make a little bit more torque, a little more power up top. We are going to manipulate a little bit of timing to optimize the knock correction system and perhaps see a little bit less activity from the knock system. So Yeah, we're excited to continue on offering off-the-shelf maps, more off-the-shelf maps for more parts, things like that.
That's really exciting for people who just bought an access port and they have like a stage 1 tune, and let's say X number of months down the line, you're like, oh, here's another tune for free.
Yep, absolutely.
With more power.
Yeah, that's one advantage to our off-the-shelf maps. We're never going to charge for an update to an existing off-the-shelf map. Maybe in the future we charge for different types of maps. It's not on our roadmap right now, but we could. But yeah, a stage 1 map, that's always going to be included in the access port. And any revision to that is a free update. All you got to do is plug it into your access port manager software and update it.
How many people can say they get to park their car in Cobb's shop? How cool is that? Actually, when we were figuring out where to film all this, Marshall was like, well, why don't we just park them inside? And I was like, I kind of like that idea. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed all of this. This actually was way, way more information than I thought that I was even going to get. And Marshall, you've been so paramount in helping this, because like my thing is I'll find the information. I don't want to be the guy that tells you. I don't mind going and finding where it is. And you have given us a lot to think about today.
Happy to continue providing as much information as you guys need.
Yeah, and you've been like pretty active online too. Like you don't really shy away from the questions on Facebook.
No, I try to keep it as transparent as we can within reason, and keep you guys informed about our product, about how things are going and all that. And excited to have you here, kind of go through what we've been up to, what we have coming out soon, and what to expect hopefully for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and you guys know I have done everything I can to make this channel as transparent as possible, because information is more valuable to us than any part ever will be. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something, and I will see you guys in the next one.